This is Jackie Weisfield presenting Special Education Interviews, which is Module 4 for EDL 853 at Fort Hays State University. So, in talking to several different people, my principal, one of our special education teachers, and one of our special education parents, I was able to glean quite a bit of information about special education and the relationships that all three of these people have throughout our building. The first question I asked was, what can you tell me about, or what are your experiences with child find procedures? And our para had no experience with child find procedures, and the principal and teacher both had minimal experiences with child find procedures. And the reason that is the only time that my principal has ever worked in early childhood education was with her own children. So she was never an early education teacher. She never taught elementary. She was always in the high school, and really middle school, her only experience with middle school has been as a principal. So there are times, since there are points at which all of our principals in the district get together, that she talks about child find is when the early childhood people talk about child find during her principal's meetings. And our teacher that I interviewed as well, again, just focused really on her own children, and she told me a little bit more about the procedures, which screens for both students who are behind and students who potentially are gifted. But mostly what child find ends up identifying are deficits rather than students who are advanced. The most challenging part of their jobs and why, at least with regards to special education, our principal talked a lot about the findings of the phenomenological study that we talked about without knowing that she was talking about that. Her biggest piece that's most challenging is knowing all the legal aspects. She identified that she didn't have enough education in either undergrad or graduate programs, and that really making sure that as a principal there are people on the staff who really enjoy knowing and engaging in those legal aspects, especially if you don't. The teacher said that her most challenging part was balancing student needs with her paperwork. She even said, she's like, I could spend all day with the kids and then take another day's worth of paperwork home with me every single day. Or I can figure out where I can slide out and where I have additional supports and where teachers are really doing a good job supporting my students, and take that time to do the paperwork so that I have a balance in my schedule. And the para expressed that she's being pulled in many different directions every single day in every single class, because a lot of times she's the only support in the room. And we currently are looking for 2 paraprofessionals in special education. The positions have been open since April, so she's really our only full-time paraprofessional right now. And as you might imagine, when we're supposed to have 3 and we have 1, she gets pulled in a ton of different directions, and really we're not meeting the level of support that some of our students need. The most rewarding part of their job, they really echoed each other quite a lot in this case. The principal talked about seeing students in the classroom interacting with others and hearing success stories from teachers and from students and from families. The teacher talked about the light bulb moments where you can teach a student something 500 different ways, and finally that 501st way makes sense, and you can just see the student begin to understand. She also liked seeing the growth over time. Right now we're only a 7-8, and so she only gets to see them for 2 years, but she's like, I can see tremendous growth even over that time. And our para talked about watching the kids be successful in class, and that could be socially, it could be academically, or it could be both. The advice that they had for staff supervision, the principal really talked about listening and asking questions and being proactive. She also mentioned that as a building principal, if you have the opportunity to choose a qualified administrator or staff member as a supervisor, to do that. It takes a little bit more off of the plate of the principal and gives the staff and the students someone who is familiar with the legal aspects and other parts of special education. The teacher talked about making sure that the administrator is always communicating that they have an open mind and an open door, so that if things come up, they can be accessed. And the para talked about listening, being respected as professionals, and ask what they're doing. Don't just assume what they're doing or why they're doing it. So I also asked about how to effectively work with the parents of children with special needs. The principal talks about making sure that she keeps them abreast of any legal changes and making sure that policies and procedures are in place for teachers. The teacher talks about communication and making sure that she does daily communication with some of her kids every day. So she might hit A through D one day and then E through J another day and so forth. Just depending on what the students need, but she contacts all the families at least once a week. And then she also attends the IEP meetings for students who are going to be moving to her caseload. So she will go in 6th grade to all the IEP meetings that she will have for students in 7th grade. And she has that luxury because we're the only middle school in the district. So the parent also talked about how she communicates really primarily through teachers. If she sees something going on, she'll talk to the teachers, and then the teachers will communicate with those parents. And then she will also communicate if she's outside during drop-off and pickup. So how do they work with regular education teachers around students with special needs? Our principal really talked about the accountability aspect and asking questions. So one of the things that we have to do is actually turn in our lesson plans every week. And so when she goes into a classroom and does an observation, really looks for those differentiation pieces and any modifications and accommodations that would be specific to that student, and just make sure that that's at the forefront of the teacher's minds. Our special education teacher provides teachers with the most information about the student without overwhelming the teachers. And that can be a lot sometimes. I currently have a student that has Tourette's, autism, and ADHD. Those are the 3 that are diagnosed, and there's a suspicion of another psychological disorder within that student as well. So we're working with that, and to get information on all of those at one time is pretty daunting for some teachers, especially new teachers, and so she really tries to provide them with the information they need without overwhelming them. And she works with teachers around any accommodations and modifications that need to happen for her kiddos. The paraprofessional talked about getting to know the teacher's lessons, getting to know the teacher's expectations in the classroom, which can be really difficult because she's in at least 7 different classrooms with 7 different teachers, and having to know the lessons and how she's going to work with her students in those situations. So the advice that they have for first-year administrators, my principal said that the best advice she got was the advice that she was going to give me, which is be at everything. Be at IEP meetings, be at anything that the district holds for special education, be at everything. Listen, ask questions, and get support. The other piece that she had the luxury of doing is surrounding herself with the right people. And it doesn't necessarily mean nice people or people that you like, but people that have different strengths in different areas, so that they complement each other, and it's really a collaborative effort. The teacher talked about listening and communicating, having an open door to make sure that the special education professionals can come in and talk and express different ideas, give you feedback on what's going well and what's not. And then also becoming familiar with the legal aspects of special education. And our paraprofessional talked about providing training and providing support, being open, listening, being available, and being inclusive, so that if you're approaching something with the lens of inclusivity, that the special education students are going to be involved in that. And what they see is the relationship between, or the roles of, the principal and the special education teacher. So our principal identified that the teachers are the experts, and that the principal just needs to make sure, or really needs to make sure, that everything is being done legally. The teacher talked about the teacher being the main communicator with the family. So the special education teacher has a caseload, and most of the communication should be going through that case manager. Not the other general education teachers, not the principal, but through that case manager. And the role of the principal being primarily support. And the para was talking about the principal really knowing the laws and the teachers really knowing the kids. The characteristics they seek in aspiring administrators with regards to special education, the principal really talked about looking, if she's hiring somebody new, that assistant administrator is going to be a learner and be someone who is open to learning as much as they can about special education and how to do it well. Looks for humility, that they listen and that they ask questions when they have them, rather than make some snap decisions that are not in the best interest of the students or the school. The teacher talked about listening, communicating, and having an open door. Again, just making sure that the special education teachers have the support system and the support of the administration, and that they can access the administrator when necessary, because you just never know when something is going to pop up that may or may not be a part of a student's disability. And the para talked about being open, listening, and again, being inclusive. Just so that the paraprofessionals feel like they're a respected part of the school community as well. And so I just want to acknowledge and give special thanks to the 3 people who really took some time to interview with me, and that would be Cheryl Canberra, Anessa Hart, and Misha Taylor. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to learning from the rest of you as well.